They'd say, hey, Nick, how do I choose the right book for myself? Or, hey, Nick, how do I take effective notes while reading? Hey, Nick, how do I retain more from the books I'm reading so I can actually take better action? If nobody's writing about how to read and implement books, I'll write that book.
There we go. Yeah, now I can hear you. For some reason, my microphone was not connecting. But anyways, thank you for coming on the show. I see you wrote a book here. I have it sitting here for the audience. Hopefully you can see that.
I love it.
Yep. I love that you write books. My audience is all about reading books. I think books are extremely important. I'm actually reading Elon Musk's book right now, so it's been really good. I actually just started reading yours. I can't wait to finish it. It just came in the mail. Amazon was kind of being slow, but thank you for coming on to the show and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Nick Hutchison. I was born and raised in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And what might surprise anybody in your audience who can probably see the episode title, or at least my background today, is that I was not much of a reader growing up. So I was more of the athlete stereotype, not really much of the academic. You couldn't pay me to read a book, but today I have a business called BookThinkers that helps authors promote and market their books. I have a large social media audience, about 200,000 across the different platforms where I share book recommendations. And as you mentioned, I just put out my first book, Rise of the Reader: Strategies for Mastering Your Reading Habits and Applying What You Learned. So I'm a student of life. I'm in the gym every day. I care a lot about biohacking, energy, books, travel, all that kind of good stuff.
Yep, I'm all about the gym. It's funny, we have quite a similar story. We're both student athletes kind of growing up, and I actually just wrote my 2 books, Beyond the Beat and How I Made My Door My Office. But we're talking about your book today. What was the book that inspired you to start writing?
You know what? I don't know if there was a single book, but what happened was I was building my audience. And over the years, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people asked me very similar questions. They'd say, hey, Nick, how do I choose the right book for myself? Or, hey, Nick, how do I take effective notes while reading? Hey, Nick, how do I retain more from the books I'm reading so I can actually take better action? And there was no book recommendation. Like, I couldn't just push people towards a specific resource. And I wanted to, but I thought, you know what? If nobody's writing about how to read and implement books, I'll write that book. So I started that process a few years ago. So I guess it wasn't one book in particular, but it was just kind of the fact that there was no other book out there talking about that same subject.
What's your favorite book? Your favorite business book, and then just your favorite book?
Well, I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So, it's tough to choose one. The book that came to mind for me is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. That book is all about how to design your dream life, how to build your own business, how to design a life that's uniquely fulfilling to you, that brings you a lot of energy and joy and happiness. And so I read that book back in 2016. I was a recent college graduate. I was working a full-time 9-to-5 job, didn't love it, wanted to start my own business. And that book gave me the understanding that magical things are possible. Reality is negotiable. You can bend reality to your will and create something that, even if society doesn't really think it's the right path, it's the right path. And so I give a lot of credit to that book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. It's a little bit of a business book. It's a little bit of a personal favorite as well. So I'll just kind of combine the 2 answers and say The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
I love that. Yeah, for me, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought that was a really good one. I listened to the audiobook. It was a little dry, but he talked a lot about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs and how there's just that difference. And you really got to fight hard in this game. It's definitely a jungle. And I learned a lot about business and life from just that book alone. So
I think so too. And hey, by the way, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kiyosaki was the first book that I read when I was 20 years old. Kind of looking for.
It's strange how it all seems to kind of come together. Like everybody, it's funny how a lot of entrepreneurs start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Something about it just kind of shocks you out of your old existence a little bit. But I know what you mean. I was working asphalting and doing farming for years before I became a cop, and it was just It definitely shows you that there's better things in life out there, and you got to chase those dreams. You got to chase those goals. So if you guys are looking to have your own podcast, be sure to sign up for the $57 a month. That's what I signed up for. And it's a good way to earn some extra money, some extra commission, and just made some money on the side. So definitely go out and sign up for Podmatch, ladies and gentlemen. On page 13 is what I really liked. If you don't mind, I'd just like to read one little chapter from it.
I don't mind at all.
Chapter, just a paragraph, of course. Picture yourself at heaven's gate, ready to look back on your life and to receive judgment. As you're standing there, you look to your right and see other versions of yourself. Those versions of you talk about a life of no regrets. They speak of pursuing their passions relentlessly, facing each opportunity with unwavering faith. They talk about striving to be the best version of themselves for their family and friends. In life, they were truly healthy, wealthy, and happy. Then they turn to you and ask, how about you? Did you take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and explore all of what life has to offer? I love that. I think most of the audience can resonate with that. And I think that's just pretty awesome, man. It's definitely good stuff. Definitely good stuff.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot about death. Years and years ago, I read a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. And she was an end-of-life palliative care nurse. She would spend the last couple of days, maybe weeks, maybe a month with somebody before they transitioned on from this life to the next. And during her conversations with people, she realized most people lived lives of regret. They ended up regretting not having lived a life more true to themselves, taking more risks, spice things up a little bit, and I try to do a lot to minimize regret. And so thinking about that situation, you've moved on and then you get face to face with a version of yourself who actually lived up to their potential. Like, that's kind of a scary thought. And so, yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about subjects like that.
Yep. The greatest enemy is ourself, and that's definitely, it's a fact, man. You got to think about death, and you got to be philosophical in that sense, and just be like, when I'm 95 years old, will everything I did in this entire life, will it have been worth it? Will I have taken enough risks, or will I regret? And, some regrets are good, obviously, but, constructively at least. And for the most part, though, you got to take risks and you got to go after things in life, and can't stress that enough. And so for sure, I just love that paragraph. I think people will definitely resonate with that. So also, I seen that you were doing some public speaking on your website. Congratulations on all your success, by the way. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've been connected to so many amazing people working in this industry, and a couple of them have hosted events and they've asked me to come out and speak. So that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy speaking from stage. I enjoy teaching people how to set an intention for each event that they attend, and how to take better notes, how to actually use the information that they're learning, because so many people show up to events, they take a bunch of notes, they're all excited, and then the notebook goes back on the shelf and they never actually use any of the information. So I'm out there actually starting conferences, teaching people how to get more out of what they're about to learn so that they don't waste their time and money. But I will say that when I was younger, I had a lot of social anxiety. I had a lot of fear of judgment, of rejection, of failure. And so to think ahead, if you would have said, hey, Nick, take a guess. Will you end up speaking on stage one day? $1 million on the line. I'd say no way. But you know what? I've developed the skill over time. I had a door-to-door sales job for a long time, and then a phone sales job. And I just consistently try to improve over time.
Yep. Sales is awesome. Sales is a great career to be in, for sure. Absolutely.
Sorry that my dog's barking in the background, if you can hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry about the echo in here. I had a nice microphone and then I couldn't hear you. I'm like, oh, my headphones aren't Bluetooth, and then they wouldn't connect. I'm like, oh man, it's going to be an echo now, but that's okay. It is a good interview. I think people will really like it. So what kind of started your entrepreneurial journey? Like, just the entire journey? Like, you mentioned a little bit about how you got into writing, but what was like that? What was the moment where it was just like, all right, things need to change. It's time. Like, we're making switches.
Yeah, I had always been a little rebellious, I suppose, growing up. I didn't enjoy being told what to read, what to think about. I didn't enjoy being penalized by teachers when I didn't think the same way that they did, right? So I always had that rebellious nature. And taking a full-time job after graduating college, I felt the same kind of restriction, right? I desired more control. I was working in a small business, so it was more flexible than just being a cog in a machine, right? But I would still have to get decisions approved by other people. And it just felt like, man, I want to be in control. And so as a recent college graduate, I was playing around with tons of different ideas on how to make money and how to work a job that aligned with my passions and things that actually brought me energy, as opposed to stealing them away from me. And so that moment kind of evolved, right? I had a buddy named Alec, and we had both read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill talks about the concept of a mastermind, where if two people are in the same room focused on the same outcome, almost like a third mind gets created, like there's this palpable energy and you could feel something happening. So I would meet with Alec on weekends and we would just whiteboard like business ideas. We would try to solve problems, any little inconvenience that we were dealing with. And I remember one week I came into the room and I just said, hey man, so many people are asking me the same questions about these books. Now, this was before I became a thought leader in the space. So at the time, it was more like, what book should I read for this? Or like, hey, what was your favorite takeaway from that book? And I just thought, I wonder if there's a place I could document all of that. So the original idea for BookThinkers, my marketing agency, was actually a mobile application that could help people retain and implement more from the books they're reading. Now, spoiler alert, that never came to fruition. But in anticipation of releasing that app, I wanted to build an audience so that when the app came alive, I could sell it to my audience, right? So I just started posting book reviews. The app failed, but what happened is authors started to reach out to me and they'd say, hey, Nick, I love your book reviews. Can I pay you to review mine? Well, that's interesting. Didn't think about that. There was this inbound demand for a new service that I wasn't even really thinking about. And so as the audience continued to grow, people were offered to pay more and more. And I just sort of followed the clues and I was curious and I would create relationships with these authors and help them promote and market their books in different ways. And, you know, kind of fast forward until today, my agency, we've got 10 people on the team and we work with hundreds of authors a year to help them promote and market their books. So that moment started with books, right? Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It had some failure baked into it, right? Because I spent tens of thousands of dollars and years on this mobile app with some of my friends. It never worked, but the result is beautiful. It's very different than what I thought, but it's beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, you know, and again, kudos, you know, most people just aren't starting businesses, especially under 30, you know, and that's the hard part. You got to make those sacrifices. You have to go for those dreams because you only have so much time and you have to build those businesses. And I definitely understand that myself. I'm going through a lot of the same stuff, especially the money. You got to spend it though. You got to put money into things. You got to put that input in if you want to get that output. So, you know, that's great. Great work, man. Congratulations for sure. Don't slow down now. You know,
nope.
You got to triple down now. Now you just got to take over the world.
Yeah, well, listen, you know, those kind of early days, I'll tell you some things that I figured out. Number one, on day one, I went on LegalZoom.com and I registered my business in the state of Massachusetts, where I'm from. And then immediately, once we got that letter in the mail, I set up a bank account. So now all of a sudden, I have a legal business entity and I have a bank account. I have no idea how to make money, but I knew that I am, right? Those two words, those are the most important words in the English language. Like, I am an entrepreneur. I have a legal business entity. I have a bank account. I have the ability to spend money and make money. And the minute that a dollar transfers from somebody else's bank account into yours, you're a business owner with a business. Now, you want to improve your average deal size and the frequency that you do business, right? You want to provide more value, but that's the thing is like that barrier to entry isn't actually that high. For a few $100s and a few hours of your time, you can have a business. And that's step one. So many people think they need to have it right. They need to have all their ducks in a row.
Yep.
And I don't think that's true. I think start as a side hustle like I did, but just get it out there into the universe. And it's amazing what can happen.
Honestly, a lot of it's just taking action. And the biggest thing is, you know, you can manifest, you know, but I think a big part of it is really just taking that action, actually making a daily checklist. You know, a lot of people just make a checklist for like the whole month, sometimes just a year, and you should be doing it every day. And it'll definitely help with your success, especially with starting businesses. Yeah, LegalZoom is great. I've used LegalZoom for pretty much every business I ever started. So what advice would you have for like a 16-year-old who really wanted to get into the game of entrepreneurship, business, writing a book maybe? What would that advice be that you would want to give them?
I would say slow and steady wins the race. I think the idea, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Like so many people they see entrepreneurs online, Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and guys like that, and they think, you know what, I'm going to start $1 billion business. And as a result, you don't take any action because it's not realistic. It's not attainable. You start to procrastinate because the task is too big. But if you set small, manageable goals for yourself and you start to build momentum, I think that's where the magic is. Listen, I didn't start my business until I was 21 years old. If I had started at 16, but slow and steady, I would have been 5 years into business by the time I turned 21, right? That's a 5-year head start.
Yep.
Slow and steady wins the race. I would recommend reading amazing books about iconic entrepreneurs. You know, books like Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson, the new biography that just launched. You just mentioned it to me as we started recording. That's an amazing book. And it talks about how when Elon was younger, he was bullied in school, and you know, he was always a little bit rebellious and an outside thinker, but he highlights reading books. They talk about how Elon would be in the library devouring books, right? They'd have to kick him out and shake him out of his tree.
His sister said he would be reading 2 books a day. That's crazy.
But that's what I think
today,
is 16.
and like today we have the resources too. You just put that audiobook on 1.5, 1.7 speed, and you just, you know, you're really retaining that information too. At least I do. I don't know how other people learn. Everybody's a little different, but I mean, just that alone, you know, audiobooks are great. And Steve Jobs, I actually just read that a few weeks ago. So a lot of good stuff. Yeah. And yours is out. Is yours on Audible, your book?
It will be in the next couple of weeks. So I've finished recording it and it'll be available. But I will say this. So I consume a ton of audiobooks. I probably listen to 30 a year, but I do have a bone to pick with audio because 80% of the inputs to our brain, right? So 80% of our ability to create a relationship with a piece of information, an input to our brain, is visual. And so by default, the other senses only make up 20%. And if you're multitasking while listening to the book, you're also at a disadvantage. So I do try to recommend to people, if something really, really, really matters to you and you want it to stick, not a biography like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson, right? Because those are more like stories. I tend to listen to those books too. But if you really want something to stick, I recommend reading the physical paper book because you're leveraging the visual input to your brain and you have the ability to take notes while you're listening. And I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the academy, we were all like, is there like an audiobook for all of these books we have to read? And they're just like, nope, we're taking every note for the next 8 hours, every single day for the next 7 weeks. And yep, so it very much is your reading comprehension is better. And that's been proven by actually just reading and physically connecting your eyeballs to that page. So yes, definitely.
Yeah. But I love audiobooks at the same time. And like I was mentioning before, biographies, so books written about iconic people, they're amazing to listen to because you're not sitting there taking notes about every single thing that person did in their life, but you're using their experience to gain an understanding of what human beings are capable of. Because Elon Musk, bullied in school, Steve Jobs started in a garage. Like, it doesn't get any better than a story like that.
Yep, that's like in the dirt entrepreneurship. That's the way to do it. And that's when you're going to learn the most. And some of the greatest businesses that have ever lived were created out of that kind of just tenacity, that will. So it's cool to read about that stuff. And I just definitely recommend anybody out there listening, pick up a book, read it, make sure it's Rise of the Reader, Beyond the Beat, or How I Made My Door in My Office for sure. But definitely make sure you're reading anything you're interested in life, read that book. It'll change your life. It'll change your life completely.
Yeah. Here's the thing is books like that, all books in the world of personal development and business, they condense decades of somebody else's lived experience into days of consumption. So I'll be caught saying this sometimes, more of an aggressive stance. Life doesn't have to be hard. Other people have already figured it out, and they've documented their greatest life lessons, which oftentimes took them decades to learn, into a book that you can buy and read or listen to for $20 in a few hours of your time. There is no excuse. And all of these books are also available for free on the internet or in your library or whatever. So it's like when somebody tells me they're dealing with a problem and they just can't get rid of it, the greatest health books, personal finance books, business books, mindset books are all available. You can read about Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. You can read about Gandhi. You can read about Jesus Christ. You can read about Donald Trump. You can read about all of these people and consume their greatest life lessons and then use them to get an advantage in life. So anytime I hear this excuse, life is so hard, you have to suffer a little bit, but there are shortcuts available to you. And if you're lazy and you default to Netflix and video games instead of using them, that's your fault. You have agency. And so, yeah, I care a lot about the action side of reading, right? But I think just the fact that these resources are available and people choose not to use them, mind-blowing to me.
It is. It is. You have a very short amount of time to get things done that you want to. So you gotta hone in on that. When you were in, what sports did you say you played in college again? It was wrestling and football, right?
In high school, yeah. So I played football in high school, and then I started wrestling as a sophomore. I actually found out I was much better at wrestling. So I ended up as captain of the wrestling team. We won our division, which was amazing. I got to wrestle in states. And then as far as football is concerned, I loved football more. So when I was a senior, my team went to the Super Bowl and I got to play on live TV in Gillette Stadium, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, how cool. I'm sorry to interrupt. Our hometown just went to states. We ended up losing, but that's really cool. Yeah, awesome. I ended up playing college football and baseball. So that's just, I'm always interested to hear an athlete's story a little bit and how that kind of happened. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, I wanted to play in college. A couple of things happened. Number one, I wasn't good enough to play D1 anywhere. So opportunities were available, D2, D3, but I didn't, at the time I really had that idea of like D1, that's what I want to play. But then my senior year of football, I tore the AC joint in my shoulder that connects your collarbone and your shoulder blade. And that was rough. And then I wrestled with it for months. And by the time I was done with wrestling season, I was like, you know what? I never want to play a sport again for the rest of my life because it was so painful. Now in college, I was in the gym every single day. Like I said, I still wasn't much of an academic. I played rec basketball. I played rec sports. I played flag football and softball and everything like that.
What was your major?
I went into business school, sort of undeclared, and I ended up with a focus on marketing. So that's what I did.
Yeah, see, I wish I would have taken more of those classes. I ended up majoring in criminal justice, which is cool. You basically learn how to be a journalist. You're just always for 20-page papers, just every day. So, I mean, I wish I would have taken more business marketing. I did take some macroeconomics, which was okay, but yeah. I'm always interested in that and seeing what kind of the routes people took. And so, yeah, college was the same thing for me. I was always in that gym. Yep.
I'll tell you what, though, I think 98% of what I've learned about business has come from real world experience outside of the classroom. I almost think that my degree was unnecessary. My time at school was beneficial because I went from insecure and shy to confident and secure, right? Over the 4 years of socialization and everything like that. But in terms of what I actually learned in the classroom, probably could have done it without spending 6 figures.
Yeah, that was my experience too. And oh my God, it was crazy. You'd think in a criminal justice class, you'd be surrounded by police officers and lawyers who would want to do good. And it was just anti-police and all that stuff. And whatever my audience thinks, that's okay. You believe what you want to believe, and that's what we support that. But at the same time, it was just every day, it was tough going to class because a lot when you're at any university, there's a certain criteria of education they have versus a lot of the real world experience you'll get from, again, like you and I, we're kind of in the dirt, we're playing the game, we're really doing it. We're really making moves. So you don't learn a lot of that stuff in college unless you're really reading books and just buckling down. That's kind of your only way. But at some point, even after reading books, you got to implement. And college, again, just doesn't really connect that as well as they could.
Yeah, I've got a mentor named Kevin Horsley, and he works in the memory space. And he ran this interesting experiment, or was involved in it, where you so let's say people finish up their second semester and now they have a few months until they go back to school. They all ace their test. On day one of the first semester of their second year, so a few months have gone by, give them that same test. Everybody fails. And it's because people optimize for short-term retention. They don't actually learn anything. They just memorize it long enough to write it on a test and then they forget it. And it's it's such a broken system. It's useless, in my opinion, to learn that.
I felt that way about real estate too, because when I was first getting into real estate, for your real estate course, it's just all reading and notes, kind of like the police academy. Anything really state driven where you're taking a class and getting some kind of license or certification will be that way. But it was just like a lot of it was, a lot of the real estate business, you have to learn from experience and time, so a lot of it was just, they wanted to do it by more just taking notes, and a lot of technicalities and just legalese. And it just, half the class would end up failing the exam, and then for state exams, typically for real estate across the country, it's the same thing, just because a lot of it's memory based. At least in my opinion, it seemed like it's very memory based on your studying habits and whatnot, and what they will give you and provide for you. So yeah, I definitely agree with your sentiments there. How much time we got? Right at 12:30. All right, well, we'll cut it off there, and if people love it, we'll definitely do another interview for sure, man.
That sounds good. I am always available, and I had a good time today, so thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it, man. Take it easy. Congratulations on all your success. Keep it up, and just good job, man. Inspiration to the whole world. And everybody, where can people find you, and what other projects are you working on?
Yeah, Rise of the Reader is the title of my book. You can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever books are sold. And BookThinkers, spelled just like it sounds, is our Instagram channel. And that's what I'm focused on, man. Everybody should go out there and get the book.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thank you.
Take it easy, brother.
Bye.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? If you loved that episode, or if you got some value from that you didn't have before, then be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We want your engagement. We need it. We got to grow this channel. We want to keep growing it. We want to make valuable content that you can learn from. And in order to do that, we need your opinions. We need your feedback. So be sure to leave comments, leave a review. Ladies and gentlemen, Santa came early this year. Christmas is right around the corner, and so is New Year's. 2024 can be a great year if you improve your life. How are you going to improve your life? The best way to improve your life is by buying my books, Beyond the Beat, A Guide to Success from a Police Officer and Entrepreneur, and my other book, How I Made My Door My Office, Experiences of a Collegiate Student Athlete and Entrepreneur. Yes, both of these books will give you tips and tricks about how to dominate in life. Both books about business, self-help, personal development, stuff that you need to know if you want to get to that next level. So be sure to buy my books as well, because the art of life, the art of existence, is to just keep proceeding. Progress, to never quit. The secret sauce to success is contained within my book. Of course, I'm not going to give you the secrets to success for free now.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
So what you're going to want to do is click the link in the description above or below and make sure you purchase, because guess what? You only have so much time. Time is your greatest asset, so don't waste it. Ladies and gentlemen, I got nothing else. Stay prudent, stay powerful, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.